This house needs to be scrubbed from top to bottom.
Eldon muttered, staring at the dark stain in the hallway. In all the years he had lived with Lovette, he had never cleaned the house. She had always taken care of it. Now he was on his knees, scrubbing the floor where she had fallen. The stain faded with every pass of the brush, but the memory refused to. The sound, the shock, the terrible stillness afterwards, those were the things he could not wash away. Eldon scrubbed harder. He knew what he had done. It was everything he did not know that frightened him. Had anyone heard the gunshot? Had anyone seen Marcus arrive? Had Lovette told anyone what was happening before she tried to leave? Every passing car made him look towards the window. Every distant sound made his heart jump. The house reeked of disinfectant and air freshener, but beneath it all, fear and guilt still clung stubbornly to Eldon's conscience. He moved from room to room, trying to make everything look ordinary again, normal, untouched, as though the house had never witnessed anything horrific. But nothing felt normal anymore. Lovette's clothes went into the washing machine, and Eldon stood staring through the glass as the soapy water turned and turned. He could wash the fabric, he could clean the floor, he could rearrange the house, but he could not silence what was happening inside his head. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the hills. Eldon's heart lurched, the sound dragging him back to the gunshot. For one terrible second, he was back in that moment. The gun raised, Lovette falling backwards, her arms reaching instinctively for balance, his hand trembling. Then the deafening sound. Eldon squeezed his eyes shut. "No," he whispered. When he opened his eyes again, the hallway was empty. Lovette was gone. Yet somehow her voice still echoed in his mind. "Eldon, please." By the time Eldon finally called the emergency services, he had rehearsed his story so many times that the words almost sounded true. Almost. As Marcus had instructed, Eldon contacted him immediately afterwards. Marcus arrived first with the authorities. The moment he stepped through the doorway, his eyes met Eldon's. Neither man spoke. They didn't need to. One look carried everything. Fear, guilt, and the silent understanding that from this moment forward, one mistake could destroy them both. Marcus turned towards the others entering the house. His expression changed instantly, professional, controlled. Nothing like the man who had stood in the same hallway only hours earlier. Eldon watched him and felt something cold settle in his stomach. From the moment Marcus stepped through the door, he made sure his team of police officers and coroners treated Lovette's death as an accident, not a potential crime scene. The official report left no room for suspicion. Later, a spokesperson faced the cameras and spoke solemnly of Eldon's grief, asking the public to respect his privacy during such a devastating time. The message spread quickly. Condolences flooded social media. Supporters praised his strength. Strangers prayed for him. Across the country, people mourned with a man they believed had just lost his wife. The nation pitied Eldon. And while sympathy gathered around him, something else began to rise with it. His popularity. The morning of the funeral arrived far too bright. Sunlight poured through the curtains as though nothing terrible had happened. As though the world had not lost someone gentle. As though the house on the hill had not witnessed a crime within its walls. Outside, everything carried on as normal. Inside, nothing would ever be the same. Eldon stood before the bathroom mirror, adjusting his black tie for the third time. His hands would not stay steady. Not from grief, from exhaustion. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, the same voice found him in the darkness. Lovette's voice. "Eldon, please." Painful, loud, final. Eldon splashed cold water over his face, then slowly lifted his eyes to the mirror. For a moment, he barely recognized the man staring back at him. His face looked thinner already, his eyes darker, his skin drained of color. Guilt was beginning to show. But to anyone who did not know better, it would look like grief. And that was useful. Eldon forced himself to breathe slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. He had seen actors do it on television before emotional scenes, steadying themselves before the tears came. Now he tried it himself. He pictured Lovette laughing in the kitchen. That part was not fake. He had loved her, in his own way. He had simply loved himself more. Outside, cars lined the street. Mourners gathered in quiet clusters. Reporters and camera crews crowded the entrance, waiting for a glimpse of the grieving husband. Members of Parliament arrived in a steady procession, followed by senior government officials, and finally, the Prime Minister, turning Lovette's funeral into a national spectacle. To the public, it was the perfect tragedy. A beautiful young wife, a powerful parliamentarian for a husband, a sudden accident, and a grieving widower everyone was ready to believe. People loved stories like that. They made life feel fragile and romantic. The church was already full when Eldon arrived. Soft organ music floated through the air. Flowers everywhere, white lilies, roses, orchids. The smell was thick and sweet, almost suffocating. He stepped inside, and the room went silent. Heads turned. Whispers followed. That poor man. I can't imagine what he's going through. So strong. The words struck the armor he had wrapped around himself, each one carrying the weight of guilt. But the armor held. No expression of sympathy seemed able to reach the part of him he was trying so desperately to bury. He nodded politely, shook hands, accepted hugs. Each gesture of comfort felt like something piercing. At the front of the church sat Lovette's father, David Matthews, still, quiet, hands folded tight in his lap. He hadn't cried yet, not once. His eyes just looked empty, like something inside him had collapsed too deep for tears. Eldon avoided looking at him, because David didn't look at Eldon like a grieving father. He looked at him like a question. When it was time to speak, Eldon walked to the podium slowly, every step measured, every breath practiced. He unfolded a piece of paper, his farewell, his performance. Eldon stepped forward. Today, I stand before you with a heart heavier than I ever imagined possible. His voice was already breaking. My wife was the kindest person I have ever known. He lowered his eyes and let the silence stretch. She believed in me when I had nothing. She stood beside me when no one else did. His voice cracked again. This time it was real. Memory. Guilt. I don't know how I am going to live without her. The words settled heavily over the church. I wasn't there when she needed me most. He paused. I should have been home. To everyone listening, it sounded like the unbearable regret of a grieving husband. A woman in the front row began to sob. Soon others followed. Eldon pressed his fingers to his eyes and let the tears come. For a moment, even he could not tell where the performance ended and the grief began. Guilt and grief had become almost impossible to separate. Through his tears, he continued, I am grateful for every year, every memory, every moment we shared. His voice trembled. My love, thank you for the life we had together. You will always be part of me, and I will carry you in my heart for the rest of my days. The tears came freely now. Rest peacefully. I love you, always. Family and friends quickly gathered around him, offering comfort and support. But David noticed something no one else seemed to. Not once during those final words had Eldon looked at Lovette's casket. After the service, people crowded around him, patting his back, calling him brave, calling Lovette an angel. Each word felt like pressure, like the truth was clawing under his skin, trying to get out. He kept thinking one thing, if they knew. At the cemetery, David stood silently as his daughter was laid to rest. He did not cry, but inside he was anything but still. His eyes kept drifting towards Eldon as mourners surrounded him with sympathy, reassurance, and words of comfort. David said nothing. He simply watched, not like a grieving father seeking answers, like a man studying someone, waiting. For what? Even Eldon could not tell. Later that afternoon, David returned to Lovette's small apartment. Not the marital house. He couldn't stand that place. Too many memories, too many lies. Inside the bedroom, David noticed a slight crease in one corner of the sheet. He reached over to smooth it, then stopped. Something black was visible beneath the bed. He bent down and pulled out a handbag. Lovette's handbag. David sat on the edge of the bed and emptied it slowly. Lip balm, keys, receipts, ordinary things, painfully ordinary. Then at the bottom of the bag, he found her phone. A small crack ran across one corner of the screen. David frowned. Lovette had told him the day before she died that she had not been to the apartment in a long time. For a moment, he wondered if the phone was an old one. Then he recognized it. The latest iPhone he had given her for her birthday. David turned it slowly in his hand, his expression tightening. If Lovette had not been here, how had her handbag ended up hidden beneath the bed? And why was her phone inside it? The questions settled heavily in his mind. Small at first, but impossible to ignore. David plugged the phone into the charger. The screen flickered to life. A red battery icon appeared, then slowly turned green. For a moment, he almost put the phone away. He could barely bring himself to touch anything that belonged to her. But something made him keep going. Maybe there was a final photograph, a message, something she had left behind. Anything. David knew Lovette used his date of birth as her passcode. He entered it, and the phone unlocked. He began scrolling. Photos, messages, call history. Her final outgoing call had been to him. His chest tightened. He kept searching. Nothing seemed unusual. Then his thumb stopped. Voice recorder. David stared at the screen. One file, 37 minutes long. Recorded the night she died. His curiosity piqued. How did the phone get here? Why would she record something that long? His thumb hovered over it. For a second he was afraid to press play, like it might hurt more than silence. Then he pressed play. Static crackled through the speaker. A rustle. Footsteps. Then Lovette's voice came through the speaker. "I'm going to my dad's. I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow, and don't expect me to hide the reason I'm filing for divorce." David's expression turned serious. Hearing her voice again struck him harder than he expected. Then Eldon's voice cut through. "You'll destroy everything." "No, Eldon, you destroyed it." David gripped the phone tighter. He listened as the argument continued, most of the words blurring beneath the pounding of his heart. Then one sentence stopped him cold. "You don't get to walk away from me." David's eyes widened. Something had changed in Eldon's voice. The argument was no longer about a marriage ending. It was about control. A faint sound came through the recording. Then Lovette spoke again, and this time the fear in her voice was unmistakable. "Eldon, what are you planning to do with that?" David went still. His mouth parted slightly. He leaned closer to the speaker, afraid of what he was about to hear but unable to stop listening. More voices, movement, Lovette pleading with him to let her leave. Then Eldon's voice rose clearly above everything else. "You're not leaving." David felt a chill move through him. His daughter had been afraid, not upset, not angry, afraid. The recording continued for several agonizing seconds before Eldon spoke again. Cold, deliberate. "This is as far as you'll carry it." David's hand began to tremble. Then came faint movement, a frightened breath. And finally, Lovette's voice, barely audible. "Eldon, please." Then silence. Nothing else. David stared at the screen, breathing hard, because he had just listened to his daughter's last moments alive. Not an accident, not a fall. Murder. Slowly, very quietly, David whispered, "He killed her." The room felt smaller. The world felt different. He pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. "I need a private investigator," he said. His voice was steady now. "I want the truth." Thanks for watching. If you missed the previous episodes, go back and catch up before watching the next one so you don't miss any important moments. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're always ready for the next episode.